All right, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in this lovely world. Dominic Castro from CMS Wire for this Jahia and CMS Wire webinar, Trust Matters, Privacy, Advocacy, and CX. Great to be on board with Jahia once again. All right, folks, so our agenda for the day, 5 minutes right now. We're in the introduction phase. And then we're going to move on to the presentation phase, about 35 to 40 minutes. And then following that, we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes or so of live Q&A. And that's you. That's your class when we want to hear from you. And you can actually submit your questions right now. Why not? Use that Q&A module at the bottom left of your browser to submit the questions, and we will get them in the queue, get them ready for the end of the show. So don't feel like you have to wait. If you have a burning question on your mind, get them right in there. We also have those colorful widgets at the bottom of your browser where you can find additional resources, including any technical ON24 support. ON24 is the platform that we are using today for this webinar. All right, we also have a giveaway. Very proud of this one. Personally, we get the CMS Wire's DX Summit 2016. So one attendee who stays until the end of the show, now don't forget, you got to stay to the end of the webinar, has the chance to receive a free pass to our show. I love saying our. CMS Wire's DX Summit 2016, our second annual show. It's going to be November 14th to 16th in Chicago, Illinois. So you can find more about our show at dxsummit.com 2016. And we're so happy to actually have Jahia on board for that one too. So you can find out more about that at the end of the show. We'll tell you how Jahia is getting involved with us. But stick around to the end of the Q&A, qualify, and hear who wins that awesome giveaway. All right, a little bit about ourselves, CMS Wire. Plenty of editorial contributors, key services, we get articles, monthly editorial themes, tweet jams, hangouts, webinars, of course, covering the topic areas of customer experience, digital marketing, social business, and enterprise information management. And about our great sponsor today, Jahia, of course, helps organizations build those trusted one-to-one relationships with their customers with a digital experience management platform to accelerate the customer acquisition revenue and outcompete their peers in the race for digital leadership. Learn more about those guys at jahia.com. All right, and there I am, your moderator for today, Dominic Castro, staff reporter at CMS Wire, and the stars of the show, our two presenters from Jahia Solutions. We got Lynn Sherrill, the Director of Content Marketing for Jahia Solutions, and joining her on the call today will be Jessica Sundstrom, the VP of Digital Marketing at Jahia Solutions. Great to be working with them once again. So first, we are going to turn the program over to Lynn. Take it away. It's all yours.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very exciting to be able to present this material. So let's just jump right into it. We're talking about trusted by design, how to combine privacy, advocacy, and customer experience. And the first thing that I think it's important to consider is just think about it as a person. Like, why are you loyal? And typically in a relationship, you're loyal because you're cared for by another person. You're cared for. You share experiences. You receive value. And you feel a real connection, an emotional connection. It's a relationship. And marketers really need to get that this is a relationship just like any other. There needs to be reciprocal benefit, and ideally it will grow better with time. So why do we cultivate loyalty? Well, it's to serve our customers better. It's to help them gain social status, to support their success, and to build those sustainable long-term relationships. And, you know, like any relationship, our customer relationship needs substance to be sustainable. And yes, there is a transactional element to them because that's the nature of business, but business is done between people, and the best business is done with mutual respect and trust and predictable loyalty that goes both ways. So looking at just the basics of customer experience loyalty 101, think of your desirable relationship as you would with a good friend. You would naturally think about what they need and how to help them have it. You wouldn't waste their time. You wouldn't feed them cotton candy for dinner. You would give them something satisfying. You would feed the relationship consistently because you care. And that is true for professional relationships with your customers and, incidentally, with your colleagues and your employees as well. So these relationships are important, and they will cultivate loyalty when you follow through. So a key way to develop loyalty is really deceptively simple. Invite your customers to be part of your inner circle. Ask for their input, invite their feedback, and engage them in creating their own experience. Think about planning a trip with friends. You would invite them to be part of this adventure or experience, and then you would find out what they would like to see and what they want to eat and what they want to learn and what they would want to experience. Then you would find a way to make that happen, or you would come up with something even better. Or if you couldn't, you would let them know that why that wasn't possible. You would communicate with them. Now, because you're the one who's holding the container for the experience, it's up to you to find out what your people want so you can give it to them. And this is true in business. Sometimes you will learn something that surprises you, that invites you to step up in a different way than you thought you would. Sometimes you'll learn things you just cannot accommodate, at least not yet. But you will always, by sharing the design and delivery process of the experience, you will always build a bond that can last for years and maybe even a lifetime. So when we look at the loyalty hierarchy, this image is how we at Jahia express the journey of digital transformation for enterprises. Our customer and your customers see a big, daunting mountain, and they need to find a way to climb it. Your role is to make that journey as easy as possible, to help them see what's ahead, how to get ready, to know what to expect, and to support them as they're making the climb. In other words, you are walking every step of their journey with them. They're going to move through all the stages to reach to the last or the top tier, ambassador is what it says there, where you can become a leader and advise them, where they can become a leader and they can advise others on how they have climbed successfully, and that will naturally include your solution. You've been a partner in creating their success, and it's integral to their experience. That means that they cannot tell their story of success without including you and your solution. So here is a hierarchy of needs. Now, it might occur to you that climbing a mountain looks a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy for those who have studied any psychology out there, which illustrates Maslow's hierarchy illustrates how a person moves through their self-actualization process. And in this case, we're showing another way of how a customer will progress through digital transformation. So you can see at the bottom that, this is about getting their base needs met, which might be an action plan and targeting an outcome and identifying the problem. And then they move up to look at the tools they need, how to streamline their workflows and what functionality they need and how to implement things, how that's going to work. And then that moves up into working with their internal community, their immediate, their vendor, their board, their employees. Now, those three equal frictionless enterprise when it's working. So that moves up to going into the external community. That's the analysts and industry reporters and peers. That's where digital transformation starts happening. And then at the top, the advocate stage, the ambassador stage, that's where the true leadership happens. That's where they can tell the war story. So the bottom line is that when someone has a stake in the outcome, they are more connected to creating that outcome. So the other part of that is that an organization cannot necessarily be an advocate if their base needs are not met, right? That kind of makes sense. You've got to have your base needs met before you can go out there and help others to meet theirs. So climbing this mountain of personal and professional discovery and capacity building in partnership with your brand creates loyalty. So your customers will build to digital transformation when the external community now sees the contrast. So I just thought that was a pretty cool way to show that. So I hope that it has translated well as it did for me. So let's look at some of the challenges in sustaining loyalty. Because just like any other relationship, loyalty is compromised when there's incongruence with your values, words, and actions. or stalling on your own growth. And that, in a business sense, that means new products, staffing, working from insights and data-driven analytics. It's also when you're unresponsive in your relationship. But, when someone doesn't return your call, you kind of lose interest, right? So the same thing happens in professional relationships, as well as not recognizing or acknowledging their success. This is a big mountain. This is a journey that we're climbing. So you want to acknowledge what your customers are doing and how they're winning. So, think of all these things for yourself. You wouldn't like any of these to happen to you while in relationship, right? So, that's one of the golden rules of marketing. Do unto your customers as you would have done unto you, right? So ideally, the way you treat your customers is the way that you want to be treated. So, I guess the slides are moving, and that would have been really cool if I would have done that. Anyway, moving on. We also want to talk about how customer business models change. Digital marketing has evolved over time from simply getting the organization online with a website to driving brand and demand with analytics. We are now in the third wave of digital marketing, where the emphasis is back on one-to-one relationships with trust and respect. And as a result, customer experience business models have to adapt. It's the nature of business. Customer experience business models are becoming increasingly sophisticated, and your business model determines the interactions customers will have with your brand. Brand values drive the quality of your interactions, and your business model must be of relevance and value to your customers. Some of the keys to a great customer experience business model are things like having harmonic vision in the C-suite to support a customer-centric orientation. So the C-suite, meaning CEO, CIO, CTO, all the C's, they need to really be aligned in the vision of what is going to be created by being customer-centric. And that means ubiquitous or complete overall responsibility throughout all levels of the organization to be responsible for the customer experience. So it doesn't matter what your function, what your role, what your title says, you are responsible for customer experience from where you are. The corporate culture must be supportive and open and willing to change with the customer's current conversations and needs. There needs to be data-driven performance with goals and refinements for marketing, sales, and delivery targets. It's no longer simply about a personal responsibility based on a title, but it's about one-to-one relevance based on customer expectations and their desired experience. And your organization, you and your organization really need to know your DNA, your distinct niche advantage in your market. Your organization is unique in some way, offering something that your customers cannot get elsewhere. And you need to know what that is. You need to know your secret sauce. And you need to know the language in which your customer will think it for optimal marketplace positioning. Digital marketers and really product developers are usually, what I call the canaries of the marketplace. Remember in the coal mines, the canaries would be tested, if the canaries keeled over, the miners would know there's gas. Well, not that we want anyone keeling over, but digital marketers and product developers usually have their fingers on the pulse of conversations and trends and needs. And as a result of their insights, the customer experience model for your organization will adapt. It's how the world's largest movie house has no movies, like Netflix, or how the largest taxi company has no taxis, Uber, or how a global telecommunication network has no telco infrastructure, which is Skype. So when you pay attention to your customers and the experience they want, and even better, you predict that, your business model will shift accordingly. So let's put together the 5 elements of loyalty. Number 1, deeply understanding someone creates connection. Then a shared experience creates natural loyalty. Solving problems together builds affinity. You want to match and pace your growth with your customers and be as responsive as you would be with your best friend. So, it's not rocket science, but it's absolutely critical. So let's talk now about brand advocacy and how this kind of plays into it. There's a concept that not many people know about that I find absolutely fascinating. It's called praxology. People make decisions based on this economic principle called praxology, and that's meaning that either there's a mathematical value, basically I give you $1, you're going to give me 3 back, or hedonic value. Hedonic value is when something has more value from being more fun, easier, simpler, less stressful, where they feel special or important or unique. And that is kind of an intangible, right? But that is the praxology. Somebody who's going to say, wow, I feel fantastic about that, they're going to invest in it. So the idea is that you want to sell your perspective for hedonic value. So you would want to share the choices that led to blah, blah, or your reactions, or the thought process, or the motivations, or the experience. Now you see where we're getting back to it, right? So everything can be commoditized except for customer experience. Customer experience is an intangible state that produces a tangible result in some way. The hedonic value is the hook for customer experience. Makes sense, right? Interesting. I know you don't want to think about that. So let's move on to talk about, this is the blue-check wheel of emotions. Now, you can see that the more centered the emotion, influence, and power it will likely have for the person experiencing it. And we're going to talk about how this all comes together, but this is a data point that's going to help you relate to customer experience in maybe a little bit different way. As a marketer, you really need to understand what's going to evoke the most powerful loyalty. Obviously, this is going to be the positive emotions as a person's engagement over time depends on their feeling positive over time. Interestingly, that is not always the most central emotion. It could be surprise or anticipation, amazement, acceptance. It could even be anger if it incites them to take action. Your responsibility as a marketer is to determine the optimal sequence and experience for your customer and then design your marketing and campaign elements with that emotional flavor in mind to create the natural outcome of loyalty. The right experience fulfills the right expectations, which generates the right emotions, which naturally creates loyalty, especially when predictably repeated over time. So when we start putting it all together, we see that brand advocacy and emotions are very, very tightly linked. Your customers will respond to your brand's positioning and the urgency of their needs. Their positive experience is going to create repeat experiences. There's something, there was a statistic, I just talked about it yesterday, 140%. Customers who have a positive experience will spend 140% more with your product over time. So when they have a positive experience, it generates business. And there's kind of a negative reward in this, in that happy customers they're going to tell 3 friends, but unhappy customers are going to tell 3,000. There's actually a book on that. If you look on Amazon, I think it's called Satisfied Customers Tell 3 Friends and Angry Customers Tell 3,000. So it's about running a business in today's consumer-driven world, and I think the name says it all. One of the things that we talk about at Jahia is a quote by Walt Disney. Do what you do so well that they will want to see it again and bring their friends. That is brand advocacy. That is enthusiasm for your brand. So that's really a good way to sum that up. So this is part of the business case for investing in customer experience. Remember, everything in business can become a commodity except customer experience. Customers need to be fully understood, and business comes from intimacy. You will win or lose by the level of intimacy you have with your customers. We had Jahia X is our user conference. We just had our user conference in Washington, D.C., and Mark Granum of Forrester Research was amazing. And he shared about the business case. And if you don't know about it, Forrester's Customer Experience Index measures the quality of experiences you deliver and then benchmarks it against your competitors so you can model your investment against improvements for impact. And essentially, he said that customer experience does impact your business, and he demonstrated that through research that shows the factors that drive customer loyalty. So if you go to the Forrester website and search for that CX index, you're going to find where you can download that and get the information directly. But one of the most powerful direct quotes that I wrote down, and again, this is Mark Granum from Forrester, he said, customer experience drives revenue when customer loyalty drives revenue. So customer experience drives revenue when customer loyalty drives revenue. So in other words, when you invest in customer experience and in building customer loyalty, you have a winning combination that shows up in bottom line results. And in my opinion, the profit becomes a byproduct of showing up in a respectful, trustworthy, customer-oriented way. So there's really three hallmarks that, these are big, broad strokes, but three hallmarks of advocacy to help you have focus are that you give your customer advocates tangible experiences of success. And you actually want to share accurate verbiage about what they just experienced so that they have a story to tell, they know how to frame it. And you also want to look for ways to make your customers successful as an advocate. So these are how you can help your customer advocates be really good brand ambassadors for you. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, and she's going to be talking more about how privacy plays into this, and I think you're going to find it fascinating as we continue.
Wow, thank you so much, Lynn, for that. I really appreciate that first introduction. So a related topic to what Lynn just spoke about is transparency, right? So which is one of the most important things for enterprises today, to become transparent, to build closer relationship to its customers. And transparency is really about sharing all the information the receiver wants to see, and not just the information the sender is willing to share. It's about putting all facts on the table, even if some of them are uncomfortable. Transparency is about being honest and open, and it's about enabling people to have conversations where questions can be asked and answered in an open and honest way. It's about removing any barriers that hinder people from accessing the information they might need to better do their job. It's not an easy task, as we know. So, but the result is, if you don't become transparent, is that you lose your ability to earn credibility and trust. And customers will stop subscribing or even opt out of your communications. You lose the ability to innovate, and your bottom line result will be negatively impacted. Your organization's ability to compete will be compromised, as well as your long-term survival. So we need to find a balance, right? So at the same time, customers want to feel safe and want to be in control of their personal data. They want to trust you with their data. And we as marketers are trying to be transparent and understand this complex world of personalized marketing. We want to know and learn everything about the individual to be able to serve them better. So how do you find this balance? And is privacy really compatible with marketing? Because if I, as a user, tell companies as little as possible about myself, how are they going to know about me, my specific needs? And how are they going to market to me as an individual? Customers are really informed today. They listen to what's going on in the world. They see the issues with data breaches. Take the example of the online password manager LastPass that was hacked. And the user data was stolen, actually. But luckily, this time, the hackers, they didn't get away with too much. But still, it's bad, right, for the user and the company, and digital enterprises as whole. Customers nowadays, they expect that you know everything about them without them having to repeat the information to you. But the reality is that companies are still struggling with having a unified view of or profile of the customer, understanding who the customer is and what he and she has gone through. The data is spread out all over the place across reporting systems, CMS systems, ERP systems, you name it. So I think this picture illustrates the problem to try to unify the view of the customer. So the customer expects seamless and easy communication, but the reality is that the enterprise contains bits of data from multiple perspectives and behind the scenes. So the view of the customer is really, really fragmented. So as the customer experience is moving from being static to being more personalized and adapted to the individual, and companies are moving to building the reputation, both online and offline, right? The pace is faster and faster, and the need for agility becomes quite evident. So we believe that these three pillars gives the enterprises the experience and reputation to be trusted by design, which is really about your company being centered around your customers and earning the trust of your customers. And personification is your ability to create and offer personalized experience to the individual, not to a group or segment, but really down to the individual, to their interest level. The two first pillars I know that you have heard quite a lot about in the past, but there is really one missing, and that's the data protection or data privacy. And privacy is really essential to build trust, that I will talk more in this presentation. So what is privacy? Well, people think privacy is related to just letting people unsubscribe, right, to communications. Just give them the opportunity to unselect themselves from your list. Some users think that data privacy is being able to hide behind your computer. Anything you do is controlled, and you don't give out anything you don't want to because you haven't signed up for it or authorized it. We as users or even enterprises also assume everything is protected, that there is a law that protects you, that data is inherently protected. The fact is that neither companies nor users completely understand data privacy, so they can't really deal with it properly. Here's what it really looks like, right? So what is really happening is that customers are inviting all these companies into their home, without even knowing about it. And suddenly they are surprised that these companies, they know things about them that they might not want to share in the first place. So for example, you know this, if you search to buy an item online, suddenly you're seeing this product in your social media feed and other places, even though you never referred to that item on those pages. So if we look at privacy itself, companies think that data privacy is a legal obligation, something that is hindering them, something that they should be afraid of, rather than helping them to be the differentiator in the market. These are examples of that. The European Union requires that you show messages like this, how you handle cookies on your site. And these examples very often reflect as a horrible user experience. These are pop-ups that usually are not well designed. And if you try to find a privacy policy, you usually don't. And if you do find it, it's very complicated to read. So most companies are actually in kind of like a waiting mode. They're waiting for consumers to get annoyed, to get really annoyed and ask for change. So if we as companies continue on this path, we will lose the chance to build trust with them proactively. But things are changing. Customers are empowered. They are more vocal and influential. And companies now have to think about privacy as an important part of the customer experience. The future of privacy is upon us, and it will be delivered via automation, not through cookies. But there is a lot to be done at this end. Oh, God, we have a poll question.
Yeah, we do. We sure do. This is Dominic Castro again from CMS Wire, your moderator for today, and we have come to a poll question where we do want to hear from you, the audience. So, question is, would you say that privacy and data protection is a priority in your organization today? So, is it a priority in your organization? Data, privacy, and protection. Yes, no, or I don't know. Jessica, looking around the industry and what you're hearing from clients, where do you think we're going to see most of these answers today?
I think most of the answers will fall into the I don't know bucket, unfortunately, but that's what I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm thinking that too.
I found a statistic that said 11% of all U.S. consumers received a breach notification in the past 12 months. Like, wow. If companies aren't paying attention, that's got to, we have to pay attention, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sure do. Well, we have the results here, folks, and the yeses do have it. So the yeses, a majority even, 63.6% for yes, 18.2% for no, and tied with I don't know. So So the yeses win there. Any surprises, Jessica?
Woo! I'm happy to see that. That's a good result. I'm happy about that, actually. I'm happy for customers.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you for answering that poll, folks. I'm going to move to the next slide, and I'm going to hand the proverbial digital microphone back over to Jessica. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Don. Appreciate it. So to continue on this path, so we did a test by using a kind of like a Chrome plugin called Ghostery. So our CTO, he was able to track the number of external trackers that are tracking a visitor data for the CNN.com page. So when we browsed to CNN.com site, we found that 66 external trackers are sending data to CNN and also to third-party companies and systems. The problem with the CNN example is that, which is just one of the examples, right? Let's see if this can move forward. Thank you. Is that most sites works in this way, right? So they don't know exactly what data is collected, how the data is used, in what context. Can you as a user opt out? And I don't mean opt out to a newsletter or such, but opt out completely. Can you completely delete your activities, including backups? So, and is this information visible to the user where the data is sent or used? And how does all this relate to customers and their privacy and the trusted relationship we want to build with them? So let's look at what really happens behind the scenes with online companies. So first we collect the data, right? And we process and mine the data. And sometimes it's being sent to third parties or even sold to third parties, so it can be used in another context. And sometimes companies doesn't even know they are doing this because they didn't read the agreement with the provider. So all this is going on behind the customer's back, and they have no control of it. So, but there are good news in a way. So there are emerging regulations coming. And so, for example, now Europeans can sue the US government for disclosing personal data without consent. Google, they got a fine for not complying with the European Union's rule of saying that they have to have the right to be forgotten. And now companies have 3 years to come up with a data breach response plan that includes assessing customer risk and inform regulators within 72 hours. So there's a lot of things going on around these regulations, and I think we will see more of this going forward. So this is a great map from the DLA-Piper.com that shows the latest in data protection laws around the world. So after this, you might want to check this out. It gives a good visual of where we're going with the whole data privacy topic. So, but the data privacy is not easy, right? So all of these elements must be considered. It's quite complex. It's like a virtual spider web of connections and dependencies. And therefore, we have Jahia has partnered with Lubenda.com to help our customers to automatically create online privacy and cookie policy. And we have also looked for an existing solution that could help us address the privacy challenge, but we couldn't find one. So back in 2013, we decided to lead the way on the path of data privacy by working on an open source standard and implementation. So we began to work with Oasis. It's a global non-profit consortium that work on development of and adoption of standards for security, Internet of Things, content technologies, and other areas, right? So we worked with Oasis to define a standardization project aimed to enable data exchange interoperability between diverse profile management systems. So the objective with this standard is to meet both data privacy concerns and enable interoperability with many third-party systems. But at the same time, we realized this challenge is much, much bigger, and it's shared by other companies as well. And that's why we extended this initiative to work on an open source code for a reference implementation project. So we choose to work with two of the most recognized communities in the open source space, Oasis, as I mentioned, but also the Apache Software Foundation, whose mission is really to provide support for open source software projects that benefit the public good. So once we defined the standard, we had to prove the concept with code that addresses these privacy challenges. So we worked for this code for more than 2 years, and our developers worked on this reference implementation project, which is called Genome. So we submitted this code to the Apache Software Foundation, and once the code was vetted and accepted, it became known as the Apache Genome project. So you can say that one definition of this project is that Genome is like the front end for the user-centric big data technologies with data privacy from the ground up. But what does that mean, really? Well, it means that through the Apache Genome project, companies can have the digital marketing tools they need to become more transparent and, as a result, more ethical. It means that Jahia is helping any enterprise that collects data to be more responsible with customer data and enable the customers to make informed choices about the data they collect. So through this Apache Genome project, you can make sure that your data is ethical. So Apache Genome ensures fair and responsible collection and use of customer data, number one. Number two, transparent. We give the customer a clear view of the data you are collecting and how you're using it. Number three, it's controlled, right? So consumers can control what data should be anonymized. Consumers can see where the data is going and who has access to it. Four, it's accessible. It's ensured that only authorized people and companies have the access to the data. And it's auditable. So be accountable to your own data policies as well as emergent legal requirements. And of course, it's secure. It's based on secure standard developed and maintained and certified. So with the Apache Genome project, which is still in continuous development, Jahia has implemented this in one of our products, our Marketing Factory product, and where it provides a lot of different functionalities as, you know, user tracking, event tracking, reporting, segmentation, download and tracking, but most importantly, it contains privacy management. It kind of sits like a front end to whatever technology the user is interacting with, and the back end sits with the company to unify the data. To give you just a visual of how the Apache Genome code could look like to a user, here's a prototype. So this prototype shows the user the details of what the server is collecting and also allowing the user to determine what should be tracked, if anything, right? So we're giving total visibility and transparency to the user and handing over the control to the end user. In fact, they have the right to be deleted if they wish, right? So I think brands and public agencies should be held accountable for policies they have in place to protect and maintain customer privacy. Only by putting privacy standards at the heart of the infrastructure and operations, by putting people back in the center of business, and by having ethic guide personal data collection, regardless of any government mandate or whatever, will it be possible to build trust in the online channel. So at the end, you know, our lives, both in the physical world and the digital world, is our own, and we should be able to control it. So if we look at the relationship between customer experience, advocacy, and privacy, so customer experience creates loyalty through positive emotions, as Lynn described. Happy, successful customers neutrally become advocates. They want to share their resources. They want to share your brand with their friends. And they want to be advocates and have greater confidence in your brand when they know you take care of them. If they know that you take care of them and their referrals by protecting their data. So I'm going to leave you before we jump into the Q&A session with the new mandate. This is written by our CIO, Ellie Array. And in fact, the way you handle your data in the future will determine the future of your company. Because without protecting your customers, you won't have any. You won't have any. And you will not have a company. So with that, I would like to thank you. And I would like to open up for Q&A, Don.
Yeah, thank you so much. And there's a little bit about Jahia there for your reference as well. Again, you can visit them at Jahia.com, Jahia Solutions, and LinkedIn, and then @Jahia for the Twitter handle. And then you can email, obviously, of course, info@Jahia.com. So very happy to have Jahia on board with us today. Thanks for that presentation. Jessica and Lynn, really much appreciated. And yes, we have come to the Q&A session of the show. We want to hear from you. Plenty of time to ask questions. You can go ahead and use that Q&A module at the bottom of the browser at any time to submit a question. And just for your reference, those are our Twitter handles, the previously mentioned @Jahia, and then there's us @CMSWire. And also be sure to check out that resources widget to the right for more information. All right, so let's go to a question to kick off our Q&A, and I will start with Jessica on this one. You were just speaking to this, Jessica. So the question is, can anyone use that Apache Unomi project code?
Yes, they can. I mean, this is open source, right? So the code is open to the public. So in this case, I would actually advise that you go on the browser and just search for Apache Unomi project, and that search will take you right to the Apache initiative, and you can read more about it and download it and so forth. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So, speaking of open source, this question comes up with us a lot. Can you say, and we'll kick this over to Lynn for this one. Can you say a bit more about what open source truly means? Does that mean people can just hack away easily, or?
Yeah, a lot of times people hear the word open and they think, oh, you're just flinging the doors right open, and but open source actually means that it is code that has been written and contributed to and vetted by numerous developers to make it as clean as possible, and they've made it available to other developers to use. So that doesn't mean that it's not secure. What it means is that it's open to be used. And then from there, you may decide you want to build proprietary applications or things like that. But open source is really simply a community model, and it's actually a core of Jahia's philosophy in that we like to give back to the community and participate with the community in developing open source code, and that is definitely a tenet of our Apache Unomi project.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Lynn. Much appreciated. Let's go to Jessica for this one. We've talked about this before, but the question is, where can I go? Where can I go to learn more about that Apache Unomi?
Well, as I mentioned, you can either go and find it in the search, in your preference of search browsers, but you could also visit Jahia.com, and we have a section on our homepage called Hot Topics. And on that page, you will find a topic about privacy and trust. So feel free to click on to that page. We have that page loaded with great sources. There are videos in there. There are assets that you can download to learn more. And I will also follow up with an email where I will guide you to where you can learn more about this whole topic a bit more.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, so let's kick this one over to Lynn. Again, we are in our Q&A session of the show. Dominic Castro here along with Jahia Solutions representatives, Jessica and Lynn. And again, if you want to submit a question, go to that Q&A module at the bottom left of your browser at any time to submit a question to our speakers. All right, let's go with Lynn for this one. Question would be, how do you discover your DNA? And not the DNA you might be thinking of, but the distinct niche advantage.
That is such a great question. Every organization, every company, every person, really, we all have our own unique secret sauce, our own unique DNA. And in an enterprise organization, that is embodied in your values, in how you show up, your approach with your customers. And one of the best ways to discover it, if you're not quite sure what it is to find out, talk to your market, talk to your customers, find out who is responding to your messaging and why. So that's what becomes important, because you can have two providers side by side with each other, and they're each going to draw their own audience because people are going to respond in different ways. So you really need to be very clear on what it is that sets you apart and that makes you unique. So talk to your customers, watch what people are responding to, monitor your campaigns, use your data, use your analytics, see what's happening for click-throughs, and do more of that.
Now, Lynn, I mean, you know, I have the next question. I'm going to go to you on this one because you mentioned earlier in the show the cotton candy for dinner thing, and you said, yeah, you wouldn't do that. And I'm like, why not? What if your customer likes it, right?
Right.
What if they call? But it actually does ring true for this next question. You know, in all seriousness, it's like the personalization thing, right? You know, it's all about what your one customer wants. So, you know, we at CMS Wire hear a lot of feedback about personalization challenges from marketers and, you know, building those true one-to-one relationships, and it's not easy, you know. So the question would be, you know, how does Jahia approach that? You know, how does Jahia and its tool set approach the personalization challenges to ensure, you know, the messages are really highly targeted?
Well, that's a really great question. There's I've got a few different answers in my head all at the same time. One of them is that I agree with you. If people want cotton candy, great, I'm all about it. But we drink our own champagne. See their food reference there? We drink our own champagne. So we use our own tools. We use Marketing Factory for analytics and understanding our customer and visitor behavior. We use the analytics. We also are it's a very significant part of who we are to invite our customers to influence our software development roadmap. Again, it's that open source model, so we're transparent with that. In all of our outbound marketing, it is always about finding a way to deliver the most value to that person. So our communications and content has a commitment to providing value at every touch point. So we work really hard at doing that, and we listen. So if we're seeing comments or in webinars like this or on our blogs, we pay attention to what people are talking about. Social media, we're very dedicated to watching that. So that's how we really are. And then we go to the live events. This has been a very big time for live events. So we're meeting a lot of our customers and partners and stakeholders in live events, person to person. So, you know, the digital world, despite being a global company that's headquartered in Geneva with offices in Paris and Toronto and, you know, Germany and all over the world, yet we still get to meet our people face to face. And so it's just really important to be actively engaged and invite feedback, and then ensure that our communications and connections really do follow that recommendation and practice of having authentic relationships.
Oh, well said, Lynn. Much appreciated. Again, we're in the Q&A session with Jahia. Feel free to ask a question at any time. Use that Q&A module at the bottom left of the browser at any time to submit a question. Again, Don McCastro, your host from CMS Wire. The next question in our Q&A is, we'll give Lynn this one again. Lynn, the question is, does Jahia typically have a lot of prospective clients inquiring about privacy? You know, when they're coming to you for that strong digital experience tool set, those nice digital marketing tools, you know, are they considering privacy? Are they asking the questions about privacy when they come to you?
Well, I would say that that's an emerging focus for our potential clients and customers, because, you know, they're seeing the regulations that are coming through. They're seeing the litigation. They're seeing you know, these data breaches, and they're like, how can I prevent that? So, you know, some of the things that we're doing, we've got the Apache You Know Me project. We also just partnered with ayubenda.com, which is a company that offers automated privacy and cookie policies. So with one click through our software, our customers can actually go to, well, maybe a couple clicks, because they have to click on what they're offering through the company, but then, boom, they have an automatic policy that's dropped onto their site. They don't have to wait for legal reviews because this has been done by lawyers. So, yes, we have tools to meet that, and we're always looking for that because our leaders, our C-suite, our CEO and COO and CTO, they're all, and CMO, and all the Cs, they're all about privacy. And so we're raising it. People don't even know what they don't know. So it's up to us to help them understand how this can really impact them. People don't realize that there's litigation that says in the next 3 years, if this is in Europe, but it's going to come here to the United States. I'm in the United States. But, you know, it's going to come that you have to have a data breach response plan, and you have to be able to inform regulators within 72 hours of a discovery of a data breach. So it's our responsibility to help our market understand just how big this is, because a data breach, I think the average data breach costs something like $6.7 million for an enterprise. I mean, it's it's a big deal, and people just, if they don't know, it's up to us to help them understand. But that being said, because of that, and there's more out there in the media, we're getting people who are more asking the question. We're getting more educated consumers. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and to add to that, Lynn, I think a lot of our clients come to us to future-proof their technologies, right? So even though they, might not be super educated on the topic, they just want to make sure it's in there for when things are starting to change and happen, right? So they're definitely in for future-proof their technology stack.
True.
Yeah, very true. And you're talking about the cost, Lynn, of data breaches, and the first vertical I think of is healthcare. I mean, that you see the headlines from the Department of Health and Human Services with what those data breaches cost, and how the government is really cranking up their enforcement. So that's one strong example. And financial, of course, too. I mean, my goodness, the dollar amount in that industry as well is crazy for breaches.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. In the Q&A here, folks, Dominic Castro with Jahia Solutions. Let's go to our next question. The question would be, how does Jahia share the experience for their customers to cultivate loyalty? Lynn, you can start with that one, and Jessica, obviously, feel free to jump in as well.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is we have dedicated social media engagement. So we have a couple of Twitter handles, one of which is designed to really bring people on the spot updates from live events. So that's definitely one way. Another is, of course, as mentioned already, we invite our customers to influence our software development roadmap, and because we're creating the solutions together, that promotes loyalty, and that happens through our enterprise subscription. Jessica, what would you say? How would you answer that?
Well, I think we talked about it in the presentation to serve up, for example, content that meets the needs of our visitors, for example. So in our technology, we have products that allow not just to build the traditional just segments and groups, but will also build up the experience and the content that we're surfing based on the visitor's interest level. So we go down to a much more granular level of knowing the customer and the visitor in our whole web experience, right? And if you do provide content based on the needs of the client, you also build up loyalty, right? Because then you surface their needs or serve their needs.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to each of you for answering that one, and we'll go to Jessica for this one. It's a great question from the field. Talking about there may be always a different approach between B2B and B2C, right? When you're talking about everything, marketing, customer experience. Now, this question is about privacy. So with privacy, do you approach that differently, B2B versus B2C? Jessica, why don't you start with that one?
Well, I think I was kind of hoping that we have passed the whole definition of the two buckets of B2B and B2C, and then we came to the conclusion that they're still people, right? Even though you're in a company or if you're a consumer. So I think from that perspective, they should be treated in the same way, because they're still people that are willing to, not willing, but want to be able to control their data independent of the setting they're in. So, of course, in the future there might be differences, but to me, I would like to say that we treat them the same because they are people.
Excellent. Thank you for that one, Jessica. And sticking with you for the next, do you find that one vertical may put forth more of an effort into privacy versus some others? So obviously we might have a wide array of industry representation on the call. So does one vertical, look at privacy more than the next?
Well, I think the ones that you mentioned are definitely leading the way, right? So financial services and the healthcare industry, everywhere where it's really sensitive data, is of course leading the way of data privacy.
Nice. All right. So going to Lynn for this one, the question would be, should companies have privacy teams? Or does it fit more naturally in one department versus another? Have you seen, Lynn, marketing, for instance, overtake privacy efforts, or another department, like compliance? Or are there a combination of folks together to create a quote-unquote privacy team out there?
This is such an interesting question because at an event earlier this week, I was just talking with Elio Clay, our CEO, and with Emmanuel Garcon, who is our COO. And together, we were talking about what does this mean? Like, should there be a chief security officer or a cybersecurity expert or things like that? And what they were saying is that when you incorporate and you basically bake in privacy throughout the organization, in a customer-centric organization, you don't have a need for that particular function. You don't need to break it out as a separate role or team or whatever, because it's baked in throughout the organization. It becomes just a part of the way that you do business. So the question being, should companies have this? I'm going to answer that maybe to initially launch that, to make sure that there are policies in place and that there are protocols and that everybody is clear on what happens if and when in a worst case scenario. So so the should maybe to get us started, but naturally over time that's just going to be a part of the way the enterprise does business.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jessica and Lynn, for that Q&A, and thanks to the field for some questions. We have come to that portion of the show. We're wrapping up very soon, so it's time to announce that winner, that hardy webinar listener who stayed on to the very end. And the winner of today's giveaway is, drumroll, Kelly McSwain Campbell. So Kelly McSwain Campbell, thank you for joining us on the call today with Jahia and CMS Wire. You have won that free pass to CMS Wire's DX Summit 2016 in Chicago, November 14th and 16th, through 16th, November 14th through 16th, the value of $1,299. And of course, even a better value is you get to meet me, Dominic Castro from CMS Wire. I will be there. So congratulations to Kelly McSwain Campbell. We will follow up with you and be in touch about the details on that. And speaking of that DX Summit, join us 2016, November 14th, 16th, right after the American election. This should be an interesting time of year, folks. Chicago, Illinois, early bird registration is open. $300 you can save right now. And thank you so much to Jahia, who's a signature sponsor of DXS 16. So be sure to visit them in our experience showcase. We're so happy to have Jahia on board once again. All right, a couple quick notes before we close. This webinar has been recorded. On-demand video will be emailed to you in a few business days. We'll also have a recap article on the cmswire.com homepage. Thanks to Lynn Sherrill and Jessica Sundstrom for joining us on today's webinar. We really appreciate that, and they're great ideas, and sticking around for that Q&A as well. So Jahia Solutions, thanks them, and we thank them as well. If your company is interested in sponsoring a webinar, hey, just send us an email, webinars@cmswire.com. Dominic Castro for CMS Wire and Jahia, signing off. Have a good day, folks.